offseason because Jonathan Kuminga, Josh Giddey, Quentin Grimes, and Cam Thomas are still out there, but they are restricted free agents. So we'll talk about what that means in this video, but the market for restricted free agents looks like it might not be as good as it has been in, some years past. So if you don't know what a restricted free agent is, that is when a player is technically a free agent, right? But like if, let's just say the San Antonio Spurs have a restricted free agent and that player goes out on the market and they get an offer 4-year, $100 million contract from whatever team, the Spurs can match it. And then that player has to stay with the San Antonio Spurs. Like that is the benefit and leverage that the team has when a player is a restricted free agent, as opposed to unrestricted, they can go wherever they want. So when it comes to restricted free agents, especially if the market is kind of dry, which it kind of is right now, just because a lot of teams don't have cap space, which I'm going to talk about, it makes the team that has the player as a restricted free agent have much better positioning, as opposed to the player, because they can't leverage all these contracts out there because there aren't any contracts out there. Not necessarily for these 4 players, but I'm just saying in general, generally speaking. So the problem with this restricted free agency, unfortunately for Jonathan Kuminga and Cam Thomas and Josh Giddey and Quentin Grimes, like I mentioned, is that there isn't really any money to go around, especially after, all these signings that happen. The only team that still has some cap space is the Brooklyn Nets, who have Cam Thomas. So if somehow Cam Thomas got an offer sheet somewhere else, they are the ones with cap room anyway. But the whole point is, because there's really not any team with this large cap room available, players like a Jonathan Kuminga, a Josh Giddey, a Quentin Grimes, we'll get to Cam Thomas in a little bit, but like those 3 teams, there isn't a $25 million per year contract out there because there's no team that can really offer that unless like the team is slipping my mind. So the problem with the market for those 4 players is they may be worth more than a qualifying offer. Like a qualifying offer for Jonathan Kuminga, I think is like $8 million something. And I'm sure Josh Giddey and Quentin Grimes is like a similar number. Something in maybe like the $5 million to $8 million range seems, standard for the qualifying offers. So while those players may think and also may be worth more than the qualifying offer, the problem is there's no team out there that can offer them that max contract that they want and stuff like that. So there really only is a couple of options. And they all, or most of them, really play into the hand of the teams that have them as a restricted free agent. If you hear the little, sounds, that is fireworks going on outside. Happy 4th of July, everybody. So, despite the fireworks, someone like a Jonathan Kuminga, who is one of the biggest, talks about restricted free agency, he obviously wanted a big contract, like $30 million per year or something like that. The problem is, again, there's no market out there for $30 million because teams don't have that cap room. So what are his options? Well, one, his option is just to sign the qualifying offer. So stay on the team 1 more year for that $8 million or so and test free agency next year when you're an unrestricted free agent. The problem with doing that is that is essentially betting on yourself. But I would say in Jonathan Kuminga's case, as opposed to someone like a Quentin Grimes or a Josh Giddey, who are definitely going to be starters and have a lot of playing time on their team, especially Josh Giddey, Jonathan Kuminga would be risking not necessarily upping his value if he doesn't get the playing time, that he got in the playoffs. Like in the playoffs, when Steph Curry went down, he was dropping 25, 30 every night, and he really showed, what type of scorer he could be. And so I feel like that upped his value at that point. So taking the qualifying offer could result in getting a higher payday, but it could not. It's just a risk. So that is, one thing. And you're also not securing a multi-year contract because you never know what's going to happen, throughout a season. So that's one option. The other option is the Warriors extend him an offer, obviously, for whatever it is, a 3-year deal and stuff like that. And then Kuminga takes the offer and he either stays there and thrives in his offer, or they come to a mutual agreement maybe at the trade deadline to trade him. So then he gets, his money, so to speak, but it probably won't be that $30 million range that he obviously is looking for. But he obviously gets more money than the $8 million qualifying offer. But then he gets traded at the deadline, just in this hypothetical scenario. So now he can go to a team that, he wants to go to or whatever if he does want to leave, and if they both agree that it's best to part ways. So that's a scenario where I feel like it benefits both parties a bit more if the option is that, or if the desire for Jonathan Kuminga is to leave. Because then, like I said, he gets his money and then they could trade him at the deadline. And so it's a win-win for everybody. The team obviously gets, whatever they get back for him, a good player, a pick, like probably both of those combined. So I feel like that's a win-win. This is why I say the team is in a great position regardless, because either he signs the qualifying offer and he's still there for the year, either way. He gets an offer sheet from somewhere else, the team just matches that. So if he somehow got a max offer, let's say from Brooklyn, I don't know what their cap space is looking like, but I know they do have some cap room. If they said, okay, Jonathan Kuminga, we're going to give you 4-year, $100 million or whatever he can get, the Warriors can just be like, okay, we're matching that because we're not going to lose him for nothing, right? So they can do that and then trade him at the trade deadline again if he really wants out. So either way, no matter what option is chosen, the Warriors have more leverage than Jonathan Kuminga in this situation. Obviously, again, next summer, if he's an unrestricted free agent, then he'll have more, power, because then he can go wherever he wants and he doesn't have to worry about the Warriors matching or stuff like that. And then the other option, obviously I didn't mention, but it's been talked about a lot, is a potential sign-in trade, which is kind of similar to what I was saying about him signing an offer and them trading at the deadline, but obviously the sign-in trade would happen now. They sign him to whatever the contract is, and they trade him to whatever team he wants. So this would be happening during the summer rather than the trade deadline. And so then again, it's like the same thing as trading him at the trade deadline, it just happens 6 months earlier or whatever. So either way, no matter what happens, the Warriors are going to get something for Jonathan Kuminga, which is why, again, if you're a restricted free agent, it kind of benefits the team more often, depending on the scenario. In this scenario, again, where the market is really dry and there's not a lot of money, it benefits the team more. So now we can talk about like a Josh Giddey and a Quentin Grimes, who they are obviously holding out because they had, good seasons, especially Quentin Grimes, and they're hoping for more money, of course, because they think their value is more. I think in Quentin Grimes' case, I feel like I see a situation where he's going to stay in Philly. I don't know if it's going to be the qualifying offer and then he tests free agency next summer, or if it's a multi-year deal. I actually am not sure how to gauge the situation. I do think he's going to be in Philly at least for this year. That's how I see it. For Josh Giddey, I feel like they're going to come to an agreement where he signs a multi-year deal with the Chicago Bulls. I think they're going to meet in the middle somewhere. Because again, the market is dry, so he's not going to get that giant contract somewhere else. But I also don't think the Bulls want to have him sign the qualifying offer and then be an unrestricted free agent next summer, because they pretty much made it clear, at least from what I saw, is that like, well, we know they traded Lonzo, but like that everybody is available for trade. They even apparently were willing and are willing to trade Kobe White. There was only like 2 players who were like untradeable to them. Josh Giddey and somebody else who I forgot, so sorry. So they think that highly of Josh Giddey. So I don't think they're going to want him going to a qualifying offer, having a really good season, and then having the option to just leave for nothing next summer, especially when they traded Lonzo. And if they trade Kobe White, like, then they're out of point guards, because Josh Giddey obviously is going to, play the point for them as well. So I think they're going to come to agreement on a multi-year deal. Whether Josh Giddey, finishes his entire deal there, I guess that just depends on how the situation plays out. But that is a situation where I definitely see a multi-year deal, happening. And I think it's somewhere where they meet in the middle on the money. Because I feel like both sides have a little bit of leverage. Like, I feel like in Jonathan Kuminga's situation, he has less leverage than Josh Giddey because I feel like the Bulls need him more, if that makes sense. Like, not that Jonathan Kuminga is not valuable, because if you watch this page, you know I think he's going to be a superstar in this league. Like, I think very highly of Jonathan Kuminga. But I'm saying at this point, because they have Steph, Draymond, and Jimmy Butler and the rest of the team, the Bulls don't have a Steph, Draymond, or Jimmy Butler, right? So I feel like they're going to figure out a way to get the deal done and stuff like that. Somebody said, no one knows basketball better than you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I try my best. I wouldn't say no one knows basketball better than me, but I definitely like to think that I know my fair share of basketball. So thank you. I appreciate that. So then we'll talk about Cam Thomas quickly. So the thing about Cam Thomas that's really interesting is that the Brooklyn Nets drafted, I think, 3 guards in the first round of the draft. Cam Thomas is a guard. That's number 1. Number 2, he's a restricted free agent. Again, the market is kind of dry. So guess what? Like I said earlier, the team who has cap space, the Brooklyn Nets. Who's on the team? Cam Thomas. So the place for Cam Thomas to get paid is the Brooklyn Nets, since they are the only ones with cap space. And the situation seems to be that they don't want to pay him, or they're not trying to pay him right now. And the Brooklyn Nets definitely have more leverage because, again, other teams out there don't have the money. They do. So someone asked me in a live stream a few weeks ago or so, shout out to that person, whoever it was, they asked me, are they going to trade Cam Thomas? And I said, I don't know, because I don't know what they're like, to me, Cam Thomas is in such an interesting situation. We know as a scorer, 25 easily for him. Like, it's no problem. But Cam Thomas' value is just, I don't know what his value is around the league. I feel like other teams would want him. Like, I feel like his type of scoring ability is definitely wanted by many teams around the league, at least a few. So I think there's a market for Cam Thomas, but obviously the market is probably not the money that he would like it to be at this moment, again, because of all the situations and the CBA and stuff like that. So I think at Cam Thomas's number that he's at right now, whatever the qualifying offer is, sure, there'll be teams who want Cam Thomas at that number. But at this $25, $30 million mark, which obviously, again, he can't really get anywhere, you know, I don't know if the market is as large. So, again, they drafted 3 guards in the first round. And they don't seem to be committed to Cam Thomas. So I guess, like that person asked me, I guess they might trade Cam Thomas at some point this year. I would, if they don't commit to Cam Thomas, I don't know what the conversations are and, you know, what's going on in the negotiations. But if in the negotiations, they make it clear that they're not going to commit to Cam Thomas long term, I think in this situation, unlike Josh Giddey, he's just going to sign the qualifying offer and test free agency next summer. That's how I see it playing out for Cam Thomas, because I think Cam Thomas is the type of guy who's going to bet on himself, because we saw what Cam Thomas can do. So, like, in my mind, that's the scenario it goes. If they are not committed to him, he's going to can't speak English, sign the qualifying offer and then test free agency. I think that's what Cam Thomas will do. So it's a tough time to be a restricted free agent. This summer, the money is not there. It's a tough time. So I understand the struggles for those 4 players, because I don't want to say any other year, because obviously not every year the teams have money, but like this year specifically, especially again because teams were rushing to, I wouldn't even say rushing, but like because of the CBA that we talk about all the time, like there are financial restrictions, so there are ways that teams are trying to get around it, and signing these 4 players to these, you know, max or $25 million a year deals is not, I don't know. I don't want to say not plausible, but it's just not happening for this summer. So tough to be a restricted free agent this summer, but I hope it works out for all 4 of them. So thank you guys so much for watching this live stream. I hope you enjoyed, and see you soon. Bye.